Our second reading comes from the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 5, verses 13 to 16. Jesus speaks, "You are the salt of the earth, but if salt were to lose its flavor, how could you restore it? It would be fit for nothing but to be thrown out and trampled underfoot. You are the light of the world. You don't build a city on a hill, then try to hide it, do you? You don't light a lamp, then put it under a bushel basket, do you? No, you set it on a stand where it gives light to all those in the house. In the same way, your light must shine before others so that they may see your good acts and give praise to your God in heaven." Thus ends the reading. Well, here we are having an indoor-outdoor worship, and I'm reminded that actually Sue Pixley is fond of bringing this up. This is one of the few churches where you're in the sanctuary, and you look around, and you see out the windows, and you see green trees and leaves and sky. What could be a better tribute to God, our Creator? We worship in the summer outdoors whenever we can, when the threat of rain isn't too much, and it's basically a green cathedral. We've got these tall trees, pillars. What could be a better place to worship? Unless it's raining. And if you're joining us live stream and it's not raining where you are, we invite you to enjoy the fact that you can be close to creation just by maybe cracking open a window. Maybe you'll hear some bird sounds, maybe you'll hear a little traffic, but you'll get a breeze or the sound of raindrops. We choose to worship outdoors in the summertime because when we do that, it reminds us that God is our Creator, the source of all life and of all that is. We are, each of us, reminded that we are part of creation, not separate observers, distant looking on, but part of God's creation. And we're also reminded that we humans have a unique partnership with God and with nature. And because of our place in nature, we have a unique responsibility. Deborah read for us from Psalm 24, "The earth and everything on it, the world and all who live in it, belong to the Creator." Now, I've always liked that psalm. And a couple of weeks ago, when we had to plan all the worship for weeks ahead, 4 weeks, because Barbara, our administrative assistant, is away on vacation, and then I'm going away on vacation, we had to get everything organized. This is a stretch to think through all those things, and the planning of worship often revolves around looking at shared readings between all the churches, the lectionary it's called. And when we got to the lectionary readings for this particular Sunday, not great. So I thought, well, we're Mountain Rise. I'm skipping those. I'm going right to one of my favorites, Psalm 24, because I like it. And then a few days ago, after we'd gotten everything all printed and Barbara went on vacation, this guy named Bill Bross was at a meeting, and he hands me this piece of paper, which I forgot to bring in with me, but it's a resolution for the United Church of Christ General Synod meeting, which happens every 4 years. And it's a national meeting, and there's this resolution. And it begins with this psalm: "The earth and everything in it, the world and all who live in it, belong to the Creator." It's Psalm 24. It's like, yes, all right. And this resolution is titled, "Who Will Speak for Trees?" A resolution on the rights of nature. And it starts with these words: "Therefore be it resolved that the 33rd General Synod of the United Church of Christ declares that," and then it quotes the psalm. And it goes on to declare, I'll just give you a brief synopsis, 3 more points. "Humans need a dramatic shift away from the point of view that the earth and all her resources are available for our sole benefit. Point 2. Nature is not there for enslavement, and it is wrong for people of faith to view nature as mere property that we own and may abuse. And last, it says the earth is an original gift to sustain all life. We are part of a church who is considering this resolution. In 2017, our United Church of Christ embraced a resolution entitled, "The Earth is the Lord's, not ours to wreck." All right. Imperative for a new moral era. But this new resolution, though it sounds similar, takes it a step further. It, quote, invites us to make a spiritual change in our human relationship with nature. Nature is not an it says, but is a thou. Alive with the presence of God's Spirit, part of God's beloved community. We are all members of this community of the earth, so we are co-participants in nature and are called to respond compassionately to the crisis that nature faces even now, end quote. I bet many of you have read at least some of the words of the 20th century Jewish philosopher Martin Buber. Just give me a hand if you've ever even heard of it, okay? Yeah, all right. Maybe college philosophy course or English or something like that. Well, he describes the highest relationship between human beings as being subject to subject, not subject to object. You know how sometimes thoughtlessly people treat others as an it, as a stereotype or something like that? Buber talks about treating them as a subject and says, it's I and thou. It's the opposite of I and it. In his book, I and Thou, he says, it can even come about, if I have both the will and grace, that in considering a tree, I become bound up in relationship to it. The tree is now no longer it. In other words, the tree is thou even. That's a pretty wild idea, to look at God's creation, living things, as subjects rather than just objects. The tree is at some level a being, maybe an expression of divine being, certainly of divine artistry. As 21st century humans, especially humans seeking to follow the way of Christ, we are challenged, each of us, to see God's creation in a new way. As the United Church of Christ resolution says, nature needs to be recovered as primordial thou. This becomes a forceful antidote to making nature an object to be used without respect or reverence. This goes beyond sentimentality. You know, I have often heard people that have a sense of reverence for nature as tree huggers. You know, no, it's not that. It's having a healthy respect for the wonder of creation, of all life, and it's time for us to see it differently, says this resolution. It's time for us to then behave differently. And it's not easy. But then, good things almost never are easy. Our economy, our worldview, everything is wrapped up in seeing the earth as an it. Our economy is based on ownership, exchange, extracting profit, and frankly, we have not advanced much since the Renaissance and the Reformation, at least not in our morality and our economics regarding nature and creation. Few people and fewer businesses calculate the true cost of what we use. or whether we can replace what gets used. I remember years ago, mountain riser Bob Thomas was working on a New York State Better Bottle Bill, it was called. They were trying to get it passed so that all containers, whether they were fizzy, carbonated, or not, would have a deposit so they would get back and could have the materials reused. And guess who killed that? Coca-Cola and Pepsi. They dumped money on it. No, we don't want to do that. But remember, there is no away when we throw something away. We so rarely stop in awe of life, which exists in such variety and wonder around us, life in balance and perpetuity, until sometimes it's in balance until we interfere. Unless we try to carefully adjust the balance. And even then, we're not that good at it. Yes, we can borrow from God's creation if we do so carefully. But we can also see many circumstances where it's more like stealing from God's creation, carelessly using it up and not caring about what is lost, sometimes forever. We don't really own any part of creation. God does. We only are entrusted with it for a while. If we're lucky, 70, 80, 90, 100 years. It has been both myopic and self-serving of churches and synagogues over the millennia to perpetuate this idea that God gave the earth to humans to use however they want as their own possession. As far back as the 1960s, a guy named Lynn White said this: more science and more technology are not going to get us out of this present ecological crisis until we find a new religion or rethink our old one. Time to rethink, people. Time to understand Jesus' words at a deeper level. Time to read the Psalms with open hearts and understand that God as creator is entrusting us with a sacred wonder. And it's not lost on me that the children that knew that the proper name for earth is spelled with an uppercase E are the people that will have it next. That's a big responsibility, isn't it? If we can turn around our relationship with life on earth, and the biblical term for that, turning around, is repent. If we can turn around ourselves in practical ways, it could be contagious. In a good way. We're done of the bad contagion. We want good contagious. We want something to go viral in the best possible way to have respect for God's earth. Imagine people learning from each other how to tread more lightly on God's wondrous planet. What if we, this small community of humans we call ourselves Mountain Rise, become more careful, with the emphasis on care, about our own respect for God's creation? For example, in a couple of weeks here after worship, we will learn more about dirt, earth, actually composting. We're going to have a workshop on how to do that in a lot of different settings. You don't have to live on a farm to do that. And then a couple of weeks after that, we're going to have a workshop on electric cars, because all the major car manufacturers, even Chrysler just announced, they're moving to all electric cars. Small steps, but steps in a more faithful direction. Yeah, a resolution puts into words a new way to think and live, but resolutions often don't work all that well. You may have noticed this come New Year's time, or more like late January, February. But when a community together resolves and empowers each other, habits can change. And that's what we need, changed habits. We can move from resolution to spiritual revolution. That is what humans need right now on a broad scale, and we can be part of the initiative that makes that happen. Action to habit change, to turn around. It's time to revolve in a revolution, to evolve to the next phase of evolution, to live with respect and awe for God's creation, and to have respect and care for God's people and God's planet. Live this way, and we can be, as Jesus said in the Sermon on the Mount, we can be salt of the earth. We can be light for the world. We can change the course of life on earth just in time. May God help us have such vital faith. Amen.